All right, this is the moderator. Dr. Cotton, it looks like we were able to get your video back up, but unfortunately I'm still not able to hear you if you're currently speaking. Can you please unmute your microphone to give me a quick mic check? Co-moderator, could you please put up the microphone indicator slides? It seems like Dr. Cotton unfortunately can either not unmute his microphone or isn't able to hear us, and I just want to make sure that it's a microphone issue. Oh, apologies, could we get the microphone indicator slide, which I believe is the next slide in the slide deck. Thank you. And then Dr. Cotton, if you could please locate that mute or unmute button and click the button so that it's green. That means you'll be unmuted and we can hear you speak. All right, this is the moderator. Dr. Cotton, I'm going to unmute you just real quick to make sure that you're able to have your microphone is working. So you should be unmuted now. Are you able to speak?
Board members and members of the public, we apologize for the technical difficulties that are happening. We did spend an hour and a half with Dr. Cotton on Monday trying to work out all technical difficulties, but it appears he's having some new difficulties with us today. Also, it looks like our court reporter is having some technical difficulties as well. So perhaps what we could do is take a half-hour lunch break while we try to get our petitioner and our court reporter online, if that's okay with the board members.
Yeah, that's fine. So, anyone else objecting? Would you like us back?
Moderator, does that sound okay with you?
This is the moderator. That sounds fine.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, this is the moderator. I see audio coming from Dr. Cotton's mic. Dr. Cotton, are you able to speak? I'm wondering if he's unable to hear us.
Dr. Cotton, can you hear us? It looks like we lost audio.
So I think that, barring any immediate changes, shall we go ahead and do a 30-minute break here and have lunch and then come back?
Yes, I think that would be good.
Okay. So why don't we go ahead and reconvene at noon and try this again?
Thank you, and apologies to Judge Washington and Jag Donahue Crawford as well. I'm sorry for the delay.
No problem. I've got work. I can sit here and take care of what we're waiting.
The digital technology age.
Right.
Oh, thank you very much. We'll reconvene then at noon.
Sounds good.
Dr. Noland? Oh, there you are. Hello. And Dr. Bradbury, are you back with us?
I can't hear you, Jessica. Am I the only one?
Can everyone else hear me?
This is the moderator. I can hear you, Jessica.
Okay. I can hear you.
Can everyone hear her now?
Yes. And Dr. Bradbury, we see your computer, it looks like. There you are. All right, I think we're ready to get started.
Is that my cue? Am I muted? No. Can everyone hear me okay?
We can hear you.
All right, so before we get started, what I normally do is meet with the petitioner just briefly to kind of give them an understanding as to how the proceeding will occur today. Mr. Cotton, or Dr. Cotton, are you able to hear me okay?
Dr. Cotton, it appears you are muted.
This is the moderator. I'll unmute Dr. Cotton.
Okay, can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Yes.
Yes, Your Honor, I did hear you. This is Dr. Cotton.
Okay, excellent. So before we get started, if we were all meeting at a board facility or in a large room, I would meet with you privately to give you some understanding as to how the proceedings will occur. So I want to go over that briefly, just a couple of things that I want to touch on to be sure that you understand how this works, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, so in this proceeding, it's important that you understand the board is concerned with hearing about your rehabilitation. And just for the record, I know we have a court reporter here, and my sense was he has not done one of these hearings before. We are still off the record. I'm just giving some preliminary instructions at this time. So, Dr. Cotton, it's important that you understand the board's interested in hearing about your rehabilitation or other circumstances that you believe supports the petition that you have filed to see whether or not your request may be granted. It's important that you understand we have a full copy of your petition You don't necessarily need to repeat everything verbatim that is in your petition, but certainly if there are things that you feel are important that you want to highlight, please do. Understand? Okay, you're muted again, but I think that was an affirmative.
Yes.
Excellent. The Deputy Attorney General will present your petition package and provide some background information in this matter. After that, you'll have the opportunity to make your presentation. I will swear you in, and you will testify under oath as to why you are here, what you would like, and why you want us to grant your petition, and again, any pertinent evidence that you feel supports your petition, okay? All right. Once that happens, the board will then ask questions. And then to the extent I have questions or the Deputy Attorney General has additional questions, we may circle back to make sure everyone has exhausted all the questions that they have. Then after the hearing is concluded, you'll be dismissed and the board will go into closed session to deliberate. All right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Once that deliberation has concluded, within approximately 30 days, I will issue a proposed decision for the board to review and to adopt, approve, or not. Sometimes there's circumstances where the board may want a particular issue to be addressed more thoroughly, or may want some changes made, things of that nature. And since it is their decision, that is their prerogative. But I want you to understand within 30 days, a proposed decision will be produced for the board to handle, for lack of a better term. Understand?
Yes, sir.
All right. Any questions for me?
Not at this time.
Okay. Then with that said, and one question, Dr. Nolan, and since we're all on the Zoom call, maybe it's not as significant a question, or it won't mean as much as it does when we're all sitting together. But generally, I'd like to know if you want to proceed in a certain order in terms of questioning, or do we just wait and see if anyone has a question in whatever order they choose?
I think usually we stick with the order that's at the top of our agenda as far as board members present, but you can also go with with whoever is, easiest for you across the row of your pictures of people, if that's easier.
Actually, they're moving around. I don't know if that's based on who's talking, so that is not easier. Let me see if I have the, if you go in order of the agenda, I want to be sure that is.
Well, not the agenda, actually. So if you will look at the minutes, okay, do you want me to just give you an order and then you can use that?
Sure.
Okay, why don't you go ahead and use Dr. Nunez, Kathy Bowler, Dr. Bradbury, Jennifer Laredo, Diane Prado, Dr. Solicito, and then myself, Dr. Noland. Okay.
This is the moderator. I want to interject just real quick before we go on the record. Can I ask that all participants please mute their microphone when they're not currently speaking? And as a reminder, that unmute button is going to be at the bottom of your WebEx screen. And then when you do need to speak, if you could click that that button again so you unmute yourself. And I believe that is all I needed to say. This is just so we can prevent any background noise, and so both our court reporter and the judge and our petitioner are all able to hear each other well. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And so, are there any other preliminary matters that we need to address before we go on the record from anyone? I will take that silence as a no. Give me just 1 second. All right. Oh, and I do have one other matter. I'm not sure if everyone was on the line when the court reporter joined us, but the court reporter has explained that he has difficulty seeing the screen. He has some visual challenges. So what he has requested is that before each person speaks, that they identify themselves. I think if you identify yourself by last name, that would be sufficient before we get started. And hopefully in terms of my prompts, that will also let him know who is speaking. But just want everyone to understand that they should be sure they identify themselves so that the record is clear. All right, so with that said, let's go on the record. We are on the record to review the petition for modification of probation of Dale Christopher Cotton. This matter is being heard before the Veterinary Medical Board. Will all the members of the board please identify themselves for the record?
Kathy Bowler.
Mark Nunez.
Christina Bradbury.
Jennifer Laredo.
Diana Prada.
Maria Solacito.
Jamie Nolan.
All right, thank you very much. A quorum of the board is present. My name is Ed Washington. I'm an administrative law judge with the Office of Administrative Hearings, and I have been assigned to preside over this matter. The Office of Administrative Hearings number for this matter is 20201000008. May I take the appearance of the Deputy Attorney General, please?
Your Honor, excuse me, you broke up on the case number.
All right, I will repeat that. It is 20201000008. And may I have the appearance of the Deputy Attorney General, please?
Anahita Crawford, Deputy Attorney General.
All right, thank you, Ms. Crawford. And may I have the appearance of the petitioner, Mr. Cotton, if you could please state and spell your name for the record?
Yes, my name is Dale Cotton. That's DALECOTTON, DVM.
All right. Thank you very much, and I'm glad we were able to work out our technical difficulties. So with that said, we can begin with the Deputy Attorney General's presentation. Ms. Crawford, you can begin when ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. This is a petition for a modification of penalty, and I wanted to introduce myself. My name is Anahita Crawford. I am appearing on behalf of the Attorney General's Office pursuant to Government Code Section 11522. I'm here to assist the board in fact-finding and to ensure adequate information is obtained from which to make a decision. By way of a background of this case, the petitioner was issued his license on June 2nd, 2000. A first amended accusation was filed on April 25th, 2017. The accusation was resolved by way of a stipulated settlement. On April 12, 2018, respondent was ordered to serve 15 days suspension and then was placed on 4 years of probation in order to comply with standard terms of probation. He was ordered to pay $10,210 in costs by April 12, 2021. His probation terms included limitations on practice, supervised practice, to take and pass species-specific written examination, restitution to the owners of the dog, ethics training, and additional CE of no less than 30 hours per year in the areas of record keeping, pharmacology of antibiotics, use of antibiotics, anesthesia protocols, diagnosis and treatment of otitis externa. The accusation charges allegations based on the petitioner's negligence in the case of two patients. The first patient was Luna, a female Chihuahua who was 1 year old in October of 2011. Luna had a deciduous canine tooth and was taken to petitioner to perform surgery to extract it. The petitioner instead performed a spay procedure on Luna. Petitioner was charged with unprofessional conduct in that he failed to establish a client-patient relationship. He failed to establish such a relationship prior to treatment. He was also charged with negligence for using Telazol as a sole anesthetic for the spay procedure which was below practice standards. He was charged with record-keeping violations for failing to document a medical history, a physical exam, a diagnosis, or treatment plan. And the entries he did make were wholly illegible. He was also charged with failure to perform a physical exam 12 hours prior to surgery. The second patient was Alex, a male French bulldog who was 3 years old in November 2016. Alex had frequently been seen by petitioner for skin and ear problems and had a history of allergies. However, no diagnostic tests had been done related to these allergies. Alex was brought in due to scratching at his ear and buttocks. The petitioner was to perform an ear cleaning and anal gland expression on Alex, and prior to the procedure, petitioner injected Alex with penicillin. After the procedure, Alex was found with a swollen tongue, which restricted him from breathing, and a very high temperature. Petitioner failed to perform CPR, chest compression, or cooling treatments, and Alex died. The petitioner was charged with poor record keeping, in that his documentation was sloppy and partially illegible. He failed to document a cardiovascular evaluation of Alex when he was recumbent in his cage after the surgery. He failed to document the solution used to clean Alex's ears and the dosage of medications used. He was charged with negligence for not properly examining Alex or performing diagnostic tests for his allergies during the many years of treatment he had provided to Alex. He was charged with negligence for failing to use all available methods to attempt to revive Alex post-surgery. And he was charged with incompetence for administering an inappropriate antibiotic and without indication that antibiotic was even necessary. At this time, $3,129 in costs remain. The petitioner is not in compliance with the 24 hours of ethics training condition, which was to be completed by April 2019. And he is not in compliance with the 30 hours of CE units in various topics per year. The petitioner requests a reduction in his probation term period and a reduction in the amount of fines owed because he states that he is compliant with the CE requirements and that the classes have addressed the reasons for the accusation. Your Honor, at this time, I would like to introduce our exhibits.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. The first exhibit, which has been previously provided to the petitioner, our exhibit binders. The first exhibit is the hearing notice to the petitioner. I would like that marked as Exhibit 1 and introduced at this time.
All right, that document is marked as Exhibit 1. Mr. Cotton, you have any objection to Exhibit 1 being admitted to evidence? It is the notice to the hearing notice of petitioner?
I don't see the notice that you're talking about, the original notice that was sent to me about the complaint.
Okay, you should have received a group of exhibits for this hearing. Have you received them?
No, I haven't.
I sent those exhibits, Your Honor, on October 7th of this year.
Okay, have you received anything that looks like exhibits? I can tell you what's in them, but rather than go through page by page, I'd like you to have the entire set of exhibits.
No, I haven't received any exhibits.
All right, let's call off the record.
Off the record.
All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So, Mr. Cotton, it's important during these proceedings that you obviously are able to see what the rest of us can see. This is your petition hearing, and I want you to be able to participate in it fully. Do you recall what the last mailing was that you received from either the board or the Deputy Attorney General?
The last mailing that I can remember was, I believe, the copy of my forms to send for my reports, my quarterly reports, and that's the last one I remember. But I did send in all the information for the my packets to the board, and they were misplaced. I don't know what happened to those originally, but that's what I remember receiving from the board was my packets for my quarterly reports.
Okay, and Ms. Crawford, I don't see proof of service, so I can't particularly question him as to the method that it was received. But looking at Exhibit 1, at least I don't see one yet. Is there a proof of service?
No, Your Honor. I had emailed the exhibit binder to the petitioner, and I confirmed his email with the board before I sent it. I can, if he's got access to an email, I've got the exhibit up. I can email it to him right now.
That'd be great. And Mr. Cotton, since it was emailed, perhaps it may be in your junk mail.
Okay,
Your Honor, this is Justice Superman. I could also display it on the screen if that would be helpful as well.
That would be helpful. It may move things along.
So, moderator, would you mind turning over presenter right so I can share my screen, please? Thank you. All right, can you guys see my screen now? Okay.
Yes, I can see it.
So here is Exhibit 1. And then if you guys just want to go through them, I will scroll as you guys go through.
Thank you. So back to our exhibit binder, Your Honor. Exhibit 1 contains...
Wait, excuse me. Are we on the record?
Oh.
Let's go back on the record.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. So, Ms. Crawford, go ahead.
Thank you. Exhibit 1 is the hearing notice to petitioner that we would like marked and introduced at this time.
Okay, and that hearing notice does appear to be on our screen. Can you see that, Mr. Cotton?
Yes, I do see that.
It's essentially the notice telling you to be at this hearing today. Do you have any objection to it being admitted into evidence?
No, I don't.
I'm hearing no objection. Exhibit 1 is admitted.
Exhibit 2 is the certification of license history that we would like marked and introduced at this time as well.
All right, Exhibit 2 is marked. The document described by counsel is marked for identification as Exhibit 2. Certification of your license history, Dr. Cotton, is on screen. Do you have any objection to the certification of your license history being admitted to evidence?
I would like to make one correction at this time. The address should be changed. The mailing address is different now.
Okay, well, a couple of things. So at this point, the Deputy Attorney General is presenting their exhibits into evidence. If you disagree with the exhibit, you can testify as to what you disagree to. I don't think you are lodging an objection. I think you're trying to sort of, as we go through this, make the correction you described.
Correct.
When you testify, since you're under oath at that point, you can make that correction. And again, that correction isn't, from where I sit, anything official. It doesn't mean that your address is being updated. But if you want to comment on the accuracy of Exhibit 2, you can do that when you testify. All right?
Okay. Thank you.
Any other objection or concern?
No, this is fine. Yeah.
All right. Exhibit 2 is admitted.
Exhibit 3 is the probation compliance report. And we'd like that marked and introduced at this time as well.
All right. The document described by counsel has been marked as Exhibit 3. Mr. Cotton, any objection to Exhibit 3 being admitted? And before you respond, I want to make sure something is clear because I don't think this is something that you do every day. So with respect to a document being admitted, the question is whether or not the board can review it in making its determination. To the extent there are inaccuracies or things you disagree with, you can testify to those things when it's your opportunity to present your evidence. So
okay.
The real question is whether or not you have an objection to the document being considered by the board.
Well, I can't really object to that or not because I'm seeing it in real time right now for the first time and have no time to really scrutinize the document, so I can't really comment on that.
Okay. Well, in response to that, I have two things. It's my understanding you've been provided with the document already. If you want, we can take a moment and go off the record to confirm that. Also, what we can do, because I don't think these documents are very extensive, if you want a couple of minutes to, one, see if you have the email, and then review the documents, we can afford you that time.
I should be able to. I think if I get about 5 minutes to read through it right now, that should be okay, if that's okay with you, Your Honor.
It's okay with me. And let me check with Dr. Nolan and the moderator and Ms. Seifert, because I don't know the full schedule. I'm here just for the petition hearing. Is that acceptable, Dr. Nolan, in terms of timing?
This is Jessica Sieferman. I think that that's acceptable. This is the last agenda item on our board meeting agenda.
Okay. So it's 12:24. Why don't we take 10 minutes? You said you only need 5. Give you a few extra. Let's take 10 minutes and let's come back at 12:35, and then we can start back up with Exhibit 3. Does that work, Dr. Cotton?
Yes, but how would am I going to be able to read them? I don't even know if I have this email.
Okay, then stand by. So we're gonna take a 10-minute break. I'm going to work with you to see if you have that email.
Okay.
And also work with Ms. Crawford to the extent you don't, to get it to you immediately and give you the opportunity to review it. But we're going to take a break until 12:35, so we are off the record.
Thank you, sir.
All right. So, Dr. Cotton,
yes,
counsel explained earlier where she sent the documents to. Do you have a moment to check your email address to see where those?
Yes, I'm checking them right now, and the date that it was sent was what time? When was the email sent?
October 7th at 2:50 p.m.
Okay. Checking.
Dr. Cotton, it's also a link on our website. I'm happy to send you the link. Can you tell me? Actually, I will email it to you right now. I'll get your email through Gender.
Okay.
Hey, buddy. Hello. Oh, excuse me. I called you. Sorry to bother you.
October 7th. Okay, it's not in my regular email. Let me check my junk mail here.
Okay, Dr. Cotton, I just emailed you a link directly to the exhibit. So if you check your email now, you should see that.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't see it in the junk mail either. All right, I'll check my regular mail here, see if it's come through. Link. Okay, I have it.
Okay, so can you confirm that you can access the documents through that link?
I'm accessing them now.
I believe that the only thing that is different in the exhibit that you saw is that the address, we believe that was your home address. We have redacted the address. Everything else is the exact same.
Okay. Okay, I see them now, sir.
Okay, why don't you take a few minutes to take a look at them and just give us a signal or let us know when you've gone through them.
Okay.
From what I can tell, there's a notice to appear for the petition hearing, which we've already gone through. Your license history. The third document should be the compliance report, which is what we're on now, which I'm hoping you're familiar with. Then there's your petition, which you should be familiar with since you put it together. And then the related settlement and discipline removal. So although it's, I think, almost 50 documents, I think most of them you're pretty familiar with. But take the time and let us know when you're done.
And Dr. Cotton, just to let you know, when I was referring to the address, I'm referring to your home address that you had put on to your petition. Your home address and your home telephone number have been redacted from the record.
Okay. Okay, sir. Your Honor?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, yes, I reviewed the exhibit.
Okay, well, since I said we're taking a break for 12:35, let's just wait a couple more minutes and we'll go back on the record then.
Yes, sir.
All right. All right, do we have all board members present? At least I can see some of you are here. Did we lose Dr. Nolan? I'm not sure. At least I don't see a towel for her on my, oh, I see it now.
This is the
All right.
moderator. Jessica, I'm going to give you back presenter status.
Thank you.
So as far as I can tell, we have everyone here that we need. If we don't, someone please speak up and let me know. All right, let's go back on the record. All right, we are back on the record, and during the break, we have confirmed a couple of things. I believe we have confirmed, Dr. Cotton, that you have received the exhibits that the Deputy Attorney General has been presenting in this matter. Is that correct? Your microphone is muted.
Excuse me. Yes, I have.
Okay. And you've had the opportunity to review them, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. So where we left off just before the break is I had identified the probation compliance report as Exhibit 3, and I want to know if you have any objection to Exhibit 3 being admitted to evidence.
No, I don't.
All right. Hearing no objection, Exhibit 3 is admitted. Counsel may continue.
Exhibit 4 is the petition for modification of penalty and attachments in support filed by the petitioner. We'd like that marked as Exhibit 4 and introduced at this time.
What I would like you broke up. Excuse me, guys. Like that marked as what?
As Exhibit 4 and introduced at this time.
Thank you, counsel.
You're welcome.
The document described by counsel has been marked as Exhibit 4. Dr. Cotton, you have any objection to Exhibit 4 being admitted to evidence? It appears to be your petition.
Moderator, if I could just please remind people to click that mute or unmute button so that when they need to speak, their microphone is unmuted.
All right, Dr. Cotton, any objection? You need to unmute.
Sorry, no, sir.
All right, hearing no objection, Exhibit 4 is admitted.
Exhibit 5 is the stipulated settlement and disciplinary order along with the first amended accusation that we would like marked as Exhibit 5 and introduced at this time.
All right, that document is marked as Exhibit 5. Dr. Cotton, any objection to Exhibit 5 being admitted to evidence?
No, sir.
All right, Exhibit 5 is admitted.
Your Honor, at this time we have no additional evidence to present, and I would just reserve on questioning the petitioner.
Okay, thank you very much. So, Dr. Cotton, now is your opportunity to make your presentation. Are you ready to do that?
Yes, sir. Thank you, first of all, Your Honor, for allowing me to. Excuse me?
1 second. So before you begin, would you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you provide today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. And now that you are under oath, would you please state and spell both your first and last name for the record once again?
First name is Dale, D-A-L-E, Cotton, C-O-T-T-O-N. Okay, thank you, sir. 4/12/2020 marks the second year of my 4-year probationary period. My probation was caused by the violation of the standards of the California Veterinary Practice Act and involved 2 cases. The violations that I committed involved record keeping, performing proper ODIC examination, and treatment, use of antimicrobials, proper use of anesthesia, and pharmacology of antibiotics. I'm requesting a reduction in duration of my probation period, along with a reduction in the amount of fines that I owe. I've completed the requested stipulations of my probation in a timely manner. I complete an additional 30 CE units per year, along with the 18 CE per year required for relicensing during my probationary period. With the extra CE hours that I have obtained, particularly in the area of record keeping, I have improved on my deficiencies and are keeping more thorough medical records. And then I do have, which I believe the board has, of the evidence of evidence of rehabilitation that I have completed thus far. And that does include record-keeping seminar of 10 CE hours by Dr. Kyrie and his program online. It includes the FETS 360 conference in 2018. It includes record-keeping seminar, and I have the certificates for that. And then there's another FETS 360 conference in 2019 that I attended. And then there were reading articles in veterinary journals involving areas of violation, and that was agreed upon by the previous probationary officer before she left, Mrs. Sydney Villanueva, I believe her name was. And then there's also another online seminar dealing with small anesthesia, part of small animals anesthesia, part 1, that I completed recently in June. But I think due to the COVID crisis, the communication's been delayed, and I have not received my certificate for that. And I've requested a number of times online, but it's just so hard to get a live person to talk to. And that would conclude my presentation.
Your Honor, can I ask a question, please?
Yes.
Dr. Cotton, can you tell me the name of the 360 vets, did you say?
It was called FETS 360. That was a conference that...
Can you spell that for me, please, sir?
Yes, sir. It's F as in Frank, E as in Edward, T as in Tom, C as in Charles, H as in hospital.
Thank you, sir.
No problem.
Any other questions for this pro? Any other questions for the court reporter? I'm going to take that as a no.
Your Honor, thank you. Sorry. Thank you for letting me cut in.
That's fine. And one thing I will explain to the group, and mainly Mr. Cotton, because I don't think this is something you do regularly. If the court reporter asks you a question, unlike questions, the court reporter simply wants to know what word you stated, as opposed to an explanation about what it means. It's natural in these hearings when someone asks a question to try to sort of expand upon what you stated, but to the extent come from the court reporter. He's just trying to make sure he creates a clear record, so he may ask you to spell something or repeat something, but he's just looking for that information. Be sure that his...
Thank you.
I'm sorry,
and,
Christina Bradbury.
Yes?
My internet cut out during some of his presentation. Dr. Cotton, did you address the ethics training, or is that for me to ask later? Thank you.
Well, either works for me. So, Dr. Cotton, if you'd like to restate whatever you've already testified to regarding ethics training, that would be helpful since we're trying to make things work here on a Zoom call.
The ethics training, I've heard about this, but I'm trying. I have to look in my documents further. But because I've been through some extensive training on these different conferences I've been attending. But I would have to go back and look through that. But I think there was some ethics training that I attended some of these seminars during the conferences that I attended. But I would have to go back and look through my records to see any the specifics on the ethics training.
Okay, and if it's okay with Bradbury, we can circle back to that and we have more.
Your Honor, I can't hear you. Excuse me.
Can everyone hear me okay? Am I breaking up?
I can hear you.
I mean, I can hear you, but there was some other noise on top of you speaking.
Okay.
The moderator, I'm going to interject real quick. Can I please ask that individuals mute their microphones when they're not currently speaking to prevent any background noise? Thank you.
Okay, so what we're going to do is, Dr. Bradbury, you can ask that question, or if you have follow-up questions when we go to the board questions. I'm not sure that the petitioner has talked in any detail about ethics training yet. I will say, from what I can tell, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Cotton, I believe what just happened was he read from his written statement dated, dated April 7th, 2020, that is attached to his petition, and in the exhibits it's marked as AGO 015. Is that correct, Mr. Cotton? What you testified to was essentially what's written in your statement?
Yes, sir. That was what I just read. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And do you have anything else that you would like to add at this point?
Yes. At this point, I would add, since we are dealing with reduction in the time of my petition and the burden of financial burden that it does cause, I must mention that, of course, with the COVID situation, it was unforeseen. And with that added additional financial burden to myself and my household. In that, now that our kids are, one of them is back in private school, and another one is here in the house with my wife. The finances, in regards to the utilities, have increased significantly, particularly over the summer. This past summer, with the AC unit running and increased food usages, particularly with my 15-year-old son. So cost of living for us has changed significantly, and it is, just that additional burden that I wish the board will consider. That's all I have to say at this time.
Okay, and before I turn it over to the Deputy Attorney General for questions, I did have one question for you, or maybe something that you could expand upon. I saw your written statement in the materials, and you've essentially repeated your written statement. What's not clear to me is what specific reduction in duration are you requesting? I heard this reference as a petition to terminate, but I'd like to hear from you if that is the case. And in terms of the reduction in the amount of fines, as you described it, that you owe, can you say specifically what reductions you're looking for in those areas, please?
Yes, sir. So I was in hopes would be maybe a year reduction in the remainder of my probation, along with and I guess it would have to be a prorated amount per year of the owed fines that would be owed. If you understand what I'm saying, that how much would be owed for a particular year, if that could be reduced to that. I think that would be fair in this instance. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Ms. Crawford, questions for the petitioner?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Cotton, Were you aware that the 30 hours per year of continuing education units you were to take was to be broken up into training in 5 specific categories?
Yes, I was.
Okay. So you have provided evidence to the board of 10 hours of record keeping in 2018. Do you have any evidence that would show your 10 hours of record keeping for 2019?
One second, please.
You know, I have a brief recommendation for the court reporter.
Who's speaking right now? What's your name, please?
It's Mark Nunez, and I was going to say, if you press your mute button, you still will be able to hear us, but you may reduce some of that feedback you're getting.
I'm not getting it anymore. Yes, sir, I will do that, though. Thank you.
But don't forget to unmute it if you have a question.
Thank you, counsel. Is everybody still here?
Attorney General, Ms. Crawford, I think the situation was, as I had mentioned before, when Ms. Cindy Villanueva, I believe her name was before, was with the board. We were somewhat in agreement with the situation that obtaining the some of the requirements were difficult for myself, and she mentioned some other. She heard from some other respondents, other people that were under probation, mentioned the same thing, that it was difficult to get these requirements in the year's time. For instance, getting any conference that you would go to get a particular course or to take a course, and say ear cleaning would only be worth 1 hour, you know, and a total conference would be worth 28 hours. So to acquire that certain conferences or units, depending on where you look, you know, it may be available, it may not be in a particular year. And if you can't find it, you're subject to try to do other means. And one of the things that I had brought up with Mrs. Villanueva was that I would read articles in particular areas where I could not get or could not find the hours at a conference or online. And so that was a situation, I think, with that deficiency.
Okay, just so that I'm clear, you don't have any certificates from official training for the 10 hours of record keeping for 2019 and 2020?
No, not this. Yeah, for both 19 and 2020, but I did perform it for 2020. But as I said, I've been trying to. The company is called Vet Med Team. I've been trying to get the certificate. It's completed, but they haven't sent the certificate yet, and I haven't had a response back from them. I have sent numerous emails, I think, since last month, and have not received any response back from them.
Was that for 10 hours of record keeping?
Yes, it was.
And did you provide the proof of registering for that class to the board?
I believe I did, but I think I print out something recently for that. Let's see.
And while you're looking, you didn't provide that document as part of your petition packet. Is that correct?
For the 2020?
For, yeah, 2020.
No, I did not.
Okay. Have you provided any certificates to the board that show that you've taken your 24 hours of ethics training?
No, I have not.
Have you completed 24 hours of ethics training?
I believe I did. And like I said, I would have to go back and look at those for those documents for that.
Okay. And there was also requirements for training in anesthesia protocols. Have you taken any training in that?
Yeah, that's the one that I took recently, and I thought I had the copy for the registration for that.
Okay. So you took that recently in 2020?
Right. That was just done, and then for the anesthesia protocol, that was for done in June, completed, I believe it was in August of this year. And I've been trying to get the certificate for that, but they have not responded back. I actually can probably forward an email for the registration, because I looked at it last night. I thought I had a copy of that here. Yeah, here it is. Here it is. Here. I'm sorry. This is for the anesthesia, and I don't know if you can, if it's clearly can be seen. Let me see.
How many hours did you register for the anesthesia class?
This was a 10-hour class.
In the subject of protocols of anesthesia?
Small animal advanced anesthesia, part 1.
And part 1 was 10 hours?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Now that's in 2020. What about 2019 and 2018? Did you take 5 hours in each of those years in protocols of anesthesia?
In 20, let me see. And again, these were the situations where me and Sydney discussed about finding these hours online and in a conference. Unable to do. Just keep in mind at a conference, if you were to take an anesthesia course, it's 1 hour per course. And so you would have to have 5 consecutive classes or separated classes to obtain that at one conference. Otherwise, you would have to use the webinars to find them, and I found that to be very difficult. I went to the AVMA catalog, and they had very little on there, and then I searched some other websites and could not find any. But this one VetMed team, I believe it was, they did have quite a bit of information on there for anesthesia, and that's the one that I think I will continue to use to get the needed hours.
Okay. And does your statement extend to all of the topics for your CEs that you were required to do, that you had difficulty meeting the required hours in the specific topics per year? because you couldn't find conferences?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure if I understand the question. Could you repeat it, please?
Is it your statement that you had difficulty finding training in the specific topics or the specific hours that you were mandated to do every year?
That's correct.
Okay. And it's not your testimony that you have completed the 30 hours in each topic per year. You weren't able to.
Yes, I was not able to, and there was an attempt to do that with Ms. Villanueva by reading articles.
Okay. Looking back on what brought these allegations to the attention of the board, have you determined what led to your mistake with patient Luna when you gave her a spay procedure instead of extracting a tooth?
Can you repeat the question one more time, please?
Yeah. Have you determined what led to your mistake with patient Luna when you gave her a spay procedure instead of extracting her tooth? What led to that mistake?
What led to that? It was faulty communication. We are a 3 actually now, hospital corporation, and this client was coming from another hospital, and they had allegedly informed the other hospital where I was that they were coming over to have a tooth extracted, and keep in mind, this has been over 5-6 years now, or more. And they came to the hospital and came into the hospital and was asked by the attendant, were they here for a surgery? And they said yes. And then after following up, the receptionist asked them again, are you here for a spay? And they said yes. And so he's brought in for a spay. And then after the animal was brought in, the physical exam was done, and we proceeded to do the procedure, and I opened the pet up and found out that he was not spayed. And that, of course, alerted me that there was some terrible miscommunication that occurred, and that was the end of the situation.
So had you reviewed the file of why this patient was being referred to you prior to the procedure?
As I recall at the time, and again, this was 6 or 7 years ago, that the way that we operated was that the client would come in and the physical exam was done, and that was done, and it was determined that there was going to be a spay done, and we did the usual protocol, brought him in, and after the physical exam, he was brought in for the procedure, and we performed it, and that's when I found out after opening him up that he was not. She was not spayed, and of course I could not tell that until open her up.
Well, so my question was, had you looked into the file of this patient to see what she was being referred to you for?
Counselor, can you say that again, please? I didn't get the beginning of your question. Excuse me.
Yes, my question was, had you looked in the file of this patient to determine what she was being referred to you for?
As I recall, that there was it was signed in, that we sign in why the patient comes in for, and it says what they're come in for, and it was, as I recall, indicated that it was spayed. And keep in mind that the individual came in and paid for a spay when they came in.
Was there a patient file that came with this pet, with this animal, that showed a history, their medical history, anything like that?
As I remember that this was a new patient at the particular clinic where I was working at. It came from another hospital of the current owner's hospital, and they referred him over to the hospital where I was to according to them, to have a tooth extracted. But of course, again, dealing with information or communication, it was communicated and the owner agreed to pay for a spay. And that's what was done with it. So, no, I don't remember recalling that a record was followed the pet over.
So how do you ensure that something like that is not going to happen again?
I will make sure that I am being very, very well understood, and keep in mind that the clientele that I deal with is 90 to 95% Spanish speaking. And so I will have to, even though it is sometimes laborious, but I have to repeat myself several times to make sure that I'm being understood and that everything is clear and that they understand, the clients, what will take place.
But how do you ensure that the client's information, you said the client said he was coming in for Luna was coming in for a spay procedure. How do you ensure that what the patient is being referred to you for is in fact the procedure you're going to do, even in light of misinformation that you say you received?
So if I understand your question correctly, are you asking how do I know if an owner, for instance, comes in and says that they want their animal spayed? How do I know if it needs to be spayed? Is that what you're asking?
Well, in this instance, the patient was referred to you for tooth extraction. You say that the owner said it was for spay. How do you ensure that you're providing the proper procedure?
So if you're using this particular instance here. So again, we're talking about communication. So if I have to ensure that I'm doing the proper procedure, because keep in mind this owner paid for a spay. Mm-hmm. Okay. So beyond that, you know, if they come in and they say, I'm here for a tooth extraction and it's printed on the document that it's a tooth extraction, then we'll take them back for a dental and or a tooth extraction. Tooth extractions are usually done at our clinic in combination with a dental cleaning, but not necessarily have to be with a dental cleaning. So the issue is the communication. I have to know what the person is coming in for and what they're requesting.
Well, what I'm perplexed by is it seems that you're saying that the referring hospital did not provide any documentation to your hospital that this patient was coming in for a tooth extraction, that there was no documentation that followed this patient, which indicated why they were being referred to you. Is that accurate?
Again, my understanding of the situation was that there was a phone call placed from the other hospital and saying that we're going to be sending over a patient, and then the patient came over.
Okay. So in a similar instance, in the exact same scenario, in a similar instance, you would not have any way of actually performing the proper procedure on this patient if the owner came in and said, yes, I think I'm here for a spay. You'd have no way of knowing what that patient was actually referred for. Yeah,
when I talk to the owners and they use that language that you just used, that I think I'm here for a spay, that's an immediate red flag. They will have to know exactly what they're in. For instance, if they come there and say, I think I need a spay, that does not sit well with me. If you think your animal needs a spay, that makes absolutely no sense. Now, if you think that you found the animal and you might not know that it's spayed or neutered, then that's a different story. Then we can take a certain course to try to determine that.
Okay. So in Luna's case, it's your testimony that it was a miscommunication or poor communication. What about in the case of the patient Alex, where he was actually your patient for some time and he was administered penicillin where he may have had an allergic reaction to. What do you think led to your mistake there?
Well, my understanding and my recollection of that case was that Alex was seen by the hospital, and I think he was seen by other doctors other than just myself. On this particular day, and this was a French bulldog, which I don't know if you're familiar with, they do have a condition called brachiocephalic syndrome, or can have that syndrome. And this owner was given the option to have blood work done and have other things done before the pet was handled. These pets can be very delicate. They can be very sensitive. As I found out, had the unfortunate experience to find out this particular day. And I remember this particular day very well because it was very busy. However, the owner decided just to have an ear flush done without anesthesia at all. So there was no anesthesia administered to this pet. So after some time being in the back, waiting for the owner, I was informed that the pet was having difficulty breathing. He was in the cage in respiratory distress, and subsequently had passed away. And it is my understanding that this was one of these incidents of brachiocephalic syndrome where the pet stressed out his tongue, swole up, respiratory compromise, and then subsequent cardiac arrest.
So what does the lack of anesthesia that the owner did not want to do have to do with the administration of penicillin?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question, please?
You said the owner did not want to administer any anesthesia, and that was because the owner was concerned about the reaction, right?
The owner declined to do blood work, which we like to do before we administer anesthesia. And I can't speak for the owner what he was afraid of at this time or did not want to do. But in these particular situations, it is probably best to use anesthesia on these particular dogs because they can stress out, which can lead to this particular condition, brachiocephalic syndrome.
Okay. And when this patient was discovered in the state that he was discovered, the allegation is that you did not make any all available efforts to revive this patient. How do you address that allegation?
We actually did try cardiac compression and oxygen support for this pet. The pet, if I recall, had 109 temperature at the time that it was found. And I believe the administration of epinephrine and dopram was administered at this time unsuccessfully for this pet.
And was there any CPR efforts made?
Yes, cardiac compression and oxygen support was given to the pet.
And cooling efforts as well?
Yes, there was. We applied alcohol to the pads of the pet. We use very cold pack ice packs on the pet, and sometimes even administer medication.
And you understand that none of that was contained in your medical records for this patient?
Excuse me?
Do you understand that none of this information about your CPR and cooling efforts was contained in your medical records of this patient? Oh, I think he's on mute.
As I recall, I don't think the cooling efforts were involved in there, but I do believe that the cardiac compression and resuscitation efforts were included.
Okay, I thought you just testified that you did provide cooling efforts to the patient. You did not?
As I recall, that there were cold packs used to try to cool him down, and we did administer the cardiac compressions and oxygen support.
Okay. And the CPR as well as the cooling efforts were not contained in your medical records. Do you recall that?
To my recollection at this time, I don't think the cooling efforts were involved, but I thought my understanding is that the cardiac compression and oxygen support was included in there.
Okay. So do you think in that instance that you committed any acts that led to the death of the patient Alex? Do you think you committed any errors in that regard?
When are you referring to?
To the treatment of patient Alex, which ultimately he died from. Do you think you made any errors that you have now learned from that led to patient Alex's death? Things that you could have done differently?
Things that I could have done differently. And in these instances, it's very difficult to assess. We can always look at it hindsight, but yes, we could have tried to attempt an IV catheter and put an IV catheter in him at the time and started him on fluids. That was not done. We did try to intubate him, but that was almost, as I recall, extremely difficult because of the swelling of the tongue. As I recall, we were trying every effort that we could to have the pet, to revive the pet, but it was unsuccessful.
What could you have done to prevent the pet from having that reaction in the first place? He was coming in for ear flushing. So what could you have done to have prevented the reaction that pet had?
That's a good question. I roll that over in my head quite a bit. As I stated before, we would like to have done some blood work on the pet just to see if there was any underlying problems that we could see before we would to anesthetize them, and see if there's anything else that would just show that he had some type of health problems. But this is a very difficult situation because of no anesthesia that was used. And the only thing that I could think of, particularly with this particular pet, and I think it was maybe in the warmer months, but and I know this is probably not standard in practice, but to put him in a cooler environment, that's cooler than the normal regular temperature in the hospital, because these pets can stress out pretty easily, somewhat like a English bulldog.
It looks like these events happened in November of 2016. Now, you are having your records reviewed presently with Dr. Hardy. Is that right?
Yes, I am.
Okay. How many records do you give him to review per month, or how many records does he review per month?
He reviews about 4 or 5 records per month.
Okay. And out of how many patients?
It varies, from month to month.
Can you give me an average?
I guess anywhere from, and I don't look at the numbers that closely, but probably $150 to $250 or so.
And he reviews 4 to 5 files out of 150 patients?
Early on, it was up to about, it was like 7 or 10, I think.
Okay. And how many hours do you currently work?
8 hours a day.
And 5 days a week?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you. I don't have any other questions.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Crawford. Now is our opportunity to have the petitioner questioned by the board. Let's start with Dr. Nunez. You have any questions?
Yes, I do. So for the court reporter, I'm Mark Nunez, member of the board. And thank you for coming, Dr. Cotton, and your petition.
Excuse me, you're breaking up a little bit. It's a little bit tricky to hear you. Yeah. Thank you. I heard part of what you said. Thank you for coming about your petition, something.
Yeah, maybe try that little trick I told you. Put your mute button on. It might reduce the feedback. So you had a complaint filed against you for these two cases. An investigation was done, and it was determined that you violated certain components of our Practice Act. And that's why you were placed on probation. The purpose of the veterinary...
Certain components of, you broke up.
The Veterinary Practice Act. The purpose of the board is to ensure consumer protection. So what we have to make sure is that veterinarians are practicing competently. You weren't put on probation for punishment. You were put on probation because we felt there were deficiencies that needed to be addressed and improved upon so that you can continue to practice veterinary medicine in a way that does not do any harm to the consumer. And the way we achieve that is through CE requirements. And I know that you've been expressing some difficulties with CE and hours recorded and so forth, but what I really want to know is what you learned from all of that. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions in a moment, but to start off with the CE that you have completed, you said you've read some articles as part of it, and other parts you went to webinars and online events. Were the online events, were they live events? Was there ability to do question and answer, or was it just a video presentation for most of the online CE events?
Yes, Mr. Nunez, the online events were conferences or CE offered forms that I could obtain CE units from.
Was it interactive? Was it live?
No, sir.
Okay. And then and just for your information, it's Dr. Nunez. I'm a veterinarian like you are.
I'm sorry. Excuse me, Dr. Nunez.
CE, the articles that you read, were there like quizzes at the end that you had to complete to ensure that you understood the articles? You have reversed. Now the mic is hot. So repeat what you just said.
Can you repeat the question again, please?
Did you have quizzes at the end of the articles that you read, or did you just read the articles?
I just read the articles.
Okay. So I have questions on the two specific cases. For the first case, Luna, the cat, what did you learn in regards to anesthesia and surgeries such as a spay?
I'm sorry, did you say Luna the cat?
Or the one that came in for a tooth, but it ended up being spayed.
Okay, it was a dog. Can you repeat the question again, please?
How would you establish an anesthetic protocol now based on what you've learned, if it were for a spay?
How would I establish an anesthetic protocol if it was for a spay?
Yes.
Okay. Of course, I would take the history of the pet and, and utilizing different parameters like the age of the pet, the previous health concerns or health illnesses that the pet might have, the weight of the pet, and that's pretty much it. I would establish the best medication that we had there. Of course, utilizing IV catheter and fluids, and then anesthetize the pet based on the most effective anesthesia that we have, including utilization of inhaling anesthesia.
So Tilazol would not be appropriate for a spay surgery?
I can't hear you, sir.
Tilazol would not be appropriate for a spay surgery?
Are you asking would Tilazol be appropriate for a spay surgery?
Yes.
Yes, it would be appropriate for a spay surgery.
Great. I know you claim to have done a pre-anesthetic exam on the pet, but it wasn't documented. So you may have done it, but according to the law, if it's not documented, you didn't do it. During a pre-anesthetic examination, many times you can determine if a pet's already spayed and determine that that was not the surgery that needed to be done. I don't even know if the deciduous canine was still present. If you did a complete physical examination and there was no canine present, deciduous canine, and that might be another reason to cancel surgery. But ethically, there is one portion here that said you told the client that it was a mistake and it was no big deal. That is unethical to say it's no big deal, and that's why ethics was kind of put into your disciplinary order. Do you see that that was unethical to say a statement like that?
Yeah, a statement of that nature would be unethical.
And the last thing I would say is that it doesn't matter what records came or what did not come with the pet. That's your case. It's your responsibility. The buck stops with you. And so the wrong forms may have been written.
The what? Excuse me, the what?
The wrong forms may have been written on check-in. There may have been mistakes in the medical record. It doesn't matter. The case is yours, and you have to take responsibility for everything that happens. So I didn't like hearing some reasons why the mistakes happened by blaming others. In regards to Alex, the owners chose a non-anesthetic ear cleaning. Why did you give atropine beforehand?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Why did you give atropine before the teeth cleaning? Or the ear cleaning?
To reduce salivation.
And you're aware that atropine will also increase the heart rate, possibly increasing the stress that this dog who ultimately had an anaphylactic reaction may have made that case more complicated. I don't see how hypersalivation would have had an adverse effect on what you were going to do.
Can I address that, please? Yes, with this particular breed that has a difficulty in breathing, increased salivation inside the mouth that can possibly obstruct the trachea and the epiglottis was a concern of mine, particularly since the individual chose not to anesthetize the pet.
Okay, fair enough. you tried to intubate the pet and was unsuccessful, did you put a face mask on and deliver oxygen via a face mask?
I didn't hear you. Did you put a face mask on? And then you broke up.
Did you try to deliver oxygen via a face mask?
Thank you.
Doctor, as I recall, and this was years ago, we did try a face mask after the attempt for intubation was unsuccessful, after the swelling in the throat was such that we could not intubate it.
It also states that you used epinephrine and Dopram. Did you use any steroids?
As I recall, I didn't.
Do you think steroids may have been appropriate?
At that juncture, when the pet was found, I don't think steroids would have been that effective.
Do you think it was having an allergic reaction?
Did you say, did I think it was having an allergic reaction? I wasn't sure exactly what the pet was having. I just knew that he was obstructed. His tongue was swollen, and he was not breathing at that time. And I was making all attempts to try to intubate the pet and to get him breathing.
Okay, I have no further questions.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Nunez. Ms. Bowler? And I don't see the file for her on my
Your Honor, this is Dr. Noland.
Excuse me, you're breaking up.
Your Honor, this is Dr. Noland, and Ms. Bowler. This is Dr. Noland. I think you'll have to mute to hear me. Ms. Bowler had to step away due to an emergency, so she has dropped off the call.
Okay, thank you very much. And we will continue with questioning Dr. Brad.
Thank you. This is Dr. Christina Bradbury of the Veterinary Medical Board for the reporter. Hi, Dr. Cotton. Thank you for coming and testifying.
Thank you.
Since that must have been a traumatic incident with the little Frenchie. Dr. Nunez was very eloquent in how he described what we're looking for in terms of rehabilitation, and I feel like some of the questions may have led to a little bit of confusion. So I just wanted to clarify or ask you how you would address a case that came in. If you could just say a case like Luna came in the morning. It sounds like it's a busy sort of high volume clinic, and they dropped off at the front desk. If you could describe how you would go about doing that case differently based on your experience and what you've learned up until you were ready to go through this space. What would you do if Luna was presented to you by the staff with this paperwork and that's all you had on Luna, but you knew that she had come from another clinic? Can you go over what you would do?
Certainly. Thank you, Dr. Bradbury. So, yeah, looking back at this particular case, and I'm just trying to juxtapose the situation with what's going on now with COVID, because we're kind of in a similar situation where we don't see the, clients as much as we should. But I would definitely, if presented with a similar situation, would want to call and confirm with the other hospital if indeed what they're coming in for is what they're coming in for, and then proceed from there and, do the physical examination, et cetera.
Okay, good. Thank you. I think that would make it would be helpful, and to ask for any records if they had them is always a good idea. And then if on a physical exam you saw the deciduous teeth and it had been confirmed that it was a spay, would you just go forward with the spay, or would you call the owner and talk to them about that?
So if I understood your question, you're saying if it came in for supposedly a deciduous tooth extraction and I saw that it was spayed, would I go ahead with I'm not clear with.
Fair enough. I don't think I asked it very clearly. If the patient presented to you for a spay and you confirmed that it was coming in for a spay and you performed a physical exam and found deciduous canines, what would you do?
Given what you just mentioned, the situation, of course, if it was a adult pet, I would, and he had deciduous teeth in there, I would recommend that they be extracted because they can affect the roots of the permanent teeth. If it was a pet that was being spayed in the process of, or rather coming in to be spayed and the teeth were still about to erupt around 6 or 7 months, I would probably give it time before the deciduous to come out.
Thank you. And then the question I think was a little bit, it was clear, but got a little unclear as to the answer. Protocol, you mentioned a few things that you didn't say. He asked if Tilazol is an appropriate anesthetic. So if you are using Tilazol as an anesthetic, as in the anesthetic plan, is that all you would use, or do you think other things are needed?
Now, we're referring to in general for a spay, or are we talking about Luna?
Just in general for a healthy dog that you've determined to be healthy, that needs to be spayed, and you've done your exam and you're ready to go forward and you're developing an anesthetic plan, and Tilazol is one of the drugs that you have, and you've chosen Tilazol. Is it appropriate to just use Tilazol?
Well, no, I generally use Tilazol along with an inhaled anesthetic like isoflurane, and that's the general way that I usually perform a spay.
Okay, thank you very much. The other, I think, issues that we're concerned with have been record keeping. And it does sound like, your letter, you had a very compelling, and I see.
Excuse me, you broke up after compelling.
Okay, can you hear me now, recorder?
Yes, ma'am. I just didn't hear what you said after compelling. You went silent.
So a letter that was compelling in your eagerness to learn and of your records, and I think a genuine desire to learn and to be better in this. So in your record keeping, how have you adjusted since these incidents and being put on probation?
Well, as you may know, working in a veterinary hospital, it could be very difficult to keep up with records. The more busier the hospital gets or your day gets, the more difficult it is to keep up with your records. Not making any excuses, but it's just even more important to be vigilant in those instances. So one has to slow themselves down during the day and set the time apart to work on your records. And I usually take the approach of doing it as I go. I don't like the things to stack up and then you get overwhelmed. But I try to write them, as I go as much as I can. And so also there have been other tools, if I could say, that we've used, me and the owner, to document certain things that are essential, that should be in the record. And of course, some of this would be alleviated or made more difficult if we weren't doing the handwritten records, but that's a whole nother story. But yeah, those are things that we do try to include, or take record keeping seminars that show some of the essential things that should be included in the record, and then institute that in our practice.
Thanks. So it sounds like you have learned to slow down, which is good, and you've taken those courses, which is good, and so I'm glad to hear that. Lastly, I just also wanted to clarify the
Can't hear you, counsel.
Yeah, I think she's frozen for a bit. Let's see if she comes back, so stand by, please. Dr. Bradbury, are you there?
This is Jessica Sieferman. I'm going to suggest that anyone who is not talking, if you could deactivate your video until you're talking, and maybe that will help with the bandwidth.
Good suggestion. Let's give that a try.
I seem to be up again. Can you hear me?
Yes.
This is the moderator. I can hear you, Dr. Bradbury.
Yes, I can
hear you. Yes.
Great, thank you. Okay, so court reporter, can you just tell me where I left off or where you stopped hearing me? Okay, I'll just start over with that last point. I was going to say my last question, Dr. Cotton, was you been asked what you were requesting to the board.
Excuse me, you're breaking up. We're requesting something.
Dr. Cotton, could you mute your microphone, please, until she finishes the question?
When asked what you were requesting from the board, I was a little unclear. It sounded like you wanted to spread out the payments further, or did you want them to be removed altogether? Can you clarify what you specifically were looking for in terms of the financial part?
Well, the financial part was kind of tied into the time element, and that would be to reduce the probation by about a year, and then to have the financial part be prorated with whatever I pay, whatever's left, I guess you would say, for the year based on, I guess, what I've paid already, but a little less than the total, I guess, would say, that's owed.
Okay. And so part of the main reason for your petition has been the financial burden. Is that correct?
Yes, it is a financial burden. And then keep in mind that this was instituted prior to COVID, which adds an additional financial burden.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, and I appreciate your patience with everything. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Bradbury. Ms. Laredo, do you have any questions?
Hi, for the reporter, Jennifer Laredo, RVT. All of my questions have been answered, so I have nothing else. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Prado.
Hi, good afternoon. For the reporter, Diana Prado, and thank you for being here, Mr. Cotton, Dr. Cotton. I have one question for you. Do you believe it's the responsibility of a pet owner to tell you what procedure their animal is coming in for?
I think it's the responsibility of the pet owner to tell us their complaint, what it is, not necessarily the procedure, but what their complaint that they're coming in for.
Okay, and their inability to be able to, I guess, verbalize then the complaint, what then responsibility does that put on yourself, the veterinarian, would you say, if any?
Then at that time that there needs to be a clarification, and like I mentioned before, that in my practice, a large percentage of the clients are Spanish speaking, and I usually have someone to translate if indeed that is needed.
Would there be anything else other than asking for a translator that perhaps you would use to help clarify what procedure the animal is there for?
Again, they usually don't come in for a particular procedure. It's a complaint. And then depending on that complaint, then I will make the decision on the procedures that will be done.
Okay. I guess I'm going to this line of questioning because I know that you'd said earlier before with Dr. Bradbury's question that, you would perhaps in retrospect look at more records for Luna, call the other offices for the records. I guess what I'm trying to hear from you, Dr. Cotton, is given the fact that many of the clients that appear are non-English speaking and are going to have a communication barrier just in general, and what responsibility do you feel you can have or you could provide to ensure that the complaint is properly taken care of?
Other than speaking to the owner directly to find out what's wrong with them, I can't think of anything else.
Okay. I don't have any further questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Prado. And next we have Dr. I'm sorry, I don't see her name on our sheet anymore. Have we lost Dr. Solito?
I'm here, Dr. Maria Solacito.
There we are. And I'm sorry, I don't use Zoom very often, so I'm figuring out as we go along. But you may proceed with any questions you have, Dr. Solacito.
Actually, I just wanted to follow up on Ms. Prado's question. I guess what also I'm kind of looking for is that is there any way or is there a system that is put in place for the hospital to have not just a verbal confirmation of what business transaction is going to happen with a client and the hospital, I guess specifically about consent. It's not just about payment for the procedure, but are they actually consenting to the procedure that they're paying for? If they are having that understanding, I guess that's what I wanted to understand if that is something that is now put in place, or was it there before when this thing happened and there was just a miscommunication or a break in protocol?
Well, we do have anesthesia forms for them and consent forms that is kind of a bundle that they could sign.
But it does not speak. It does not stipulate specifically what the procedure is, and is that being discussed with them, with the client, or is it just something that is passed on to them to sign off on?
Well, of course, as you know, that there are different procedures that will be done, given a particular case. But if it involves anesthesia and consent for treatment, my recollection is that our form has it bundled in one form.
Okay, thank you very much. No further questions.
All right, thank you. Dr. Nolan?
This is Dr. Nolan for the court reporter, Jamie Nolan. Welcome, Dr. Cotton. I do have one clarification. I think you mentioned Sydney as the probation officer earlier. Does that sound correct, Sydney Villanueva?
Yes, doctor.
It appears that you mentioned that you and Sydney came to an agreement that because it was difficult to achieve the hours of continuing education in the specific categories, that it was okay to go ahead and use more general CE to fulfill your limits. Was that an arrangement that you made with Sydney?
Yes, doctor. My understanding was that, my recollection is that I informed Sydney the difficulty in obtaining the amount of CE that was required for me, and the difficulty that I was having. And she did mention, at least on one occasion, that she was aware of that and heard that from other individuals that were under probation, and that it was okay to send in articles that I read, in the area of the deficiency.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all my questions.
Okay, are there any other questions by members of the board before I allow Mr. Cotton to follow up with any additional testimony? Or anyone has additional questions, now would be the time. Okay, I'm going to take the silence as there are no additional questions. Mr. Cotton, do you have anything that you would like to add? Or actually, before I do, Ms. Crawford, do you have any additional questions that you may want to ask the petitioner now that you've heard him respond to other questions?
I do not, Your Honor. I did want to potentially have Ms. The current probation monitor, I did want to have her clarify some issues.
Okay, is she available or on her call, or will she be on?
She is.
Okay.
Yes, she is.
Okay, then I'll finish up with Mr. Cotton, and then I'll allow you to call a witness.
Thank you.
Sure. So, Mr. Cotton, is there anything else that you would like to add? Sometimes when a witness is asked questions, things come to mind that they may not have thought of initially to mention. Is there something that you would like to add or expand upon based on the questions that you have been asked by Ms. Crawford of the board?
Well, the only thing that comes to mind to me right now, which I'm rather perplexed, is that I do remember reading in the documentation for the hearing was that the cases were not going to be retried, and to be frank, it feels like they were. So that's the only thing that I can add.
Okay. And I'm not sure if it's helpful, but certainly the board and everyone here is entitled to ask questions to see or to address essentially whether or not your petition should be granted. And sometimes that involves going into the underlying circumstances to see what a person has learned, what they would do differently, and to give the petitioner the opportunity to demonstrate that they have rehabilitated and that they essentially should be provided the relief that they're seeking. So I'll say that from where I sit. Sometimes when those questions are asked, it may seem like the case is being relitigated, but from where I sit, I think the question is, what level of rehabilitation is there? And we want you to have the opportunity to explain that rehabilitation in detail. So anything else you'd like to add?
Not at this time. Thank you, sir.
Okay, and so what I'm going to ask that we do, if it's okay with everyone else, is take a short break, and then we can come back and have Ms. Crawford call her witness. Is 10 minutes sufficient? I'm going to take that as a yes. Right now I have
yes. Thank you.
I have 1:56, so let's come back in 10 minutes, so 2:06 off the record.
See you then.
All right, so let's go back on the record. And just before taking our break, Mr. Cotton had finished his testimony. So, Mr. Cotton, you are officially excused from the witness stand. And it's my understanding, Ms. Crawford, you may want to call a witness at this point.
Excuse me, Judge.
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd like to just show I do have on my phone evidence of the last anesthesia CE that I obtained, which was this summer in June.
Okay, so it's my understanding that you want to show us proof of your enrollment in some sort of CE?
Yes.
Excuse me. You broke up. Proof of what?
Proof of enrollment in CE, continuing education.
Thank you.
And I'll say this, Mr. Cotton, hang on. So one of the things that's challenging when having these hearings is making sure that the evidence that is considered is actually part of the official record. And I will tell you, we cannot take your holding something up to the to the camera as evidence, because it's not something that we can admit into the record. However, there are certainly times, especially now with the challenges faced with having these hearings by video and at home, there are times where you are certainly allowed to testify that you have completed whatever it is you're attempting to establish. And I have no objection from the bench to your showing it on the camera to everyone, but keep in mind that what the record will reflect is that you testified to what you stated and then showed something to the camera, but it will not be, what's on your phone cannot be part of the record, because we can't, take your phone and mark it as included. Does that make sense? You just need your microphone. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. Is there any way that you can make it a part of the record at this time, or one can make it a part of the record?
So the shorthand version of what I just stated is what you say will be part of the record. Any documents that are admitted into evidence will be part of the record. That you show us something on your phone will only be in the record to the extent you are saying, I'm showing something to the camera. But what's on your phone can't be recorded because it's not a printed document. It's not part of our record.
Right. So I guess the question directly is that I could send this by email, and if it could be printed out, it could be part of the record. That's what I'm asking.
It is certainly possible to hold the record open. My concern with the petition hearing, though, is there will be deliberations immediately following the hearing in which a determination will be made. So rather than do what you have suggested, what I'm going to suggest, and at this point instruct, is I'll allow you to testify to what you're trying to establish. And if you want to hold the phone up to the camera, you can, but your testimony is essentially going to be the evidence that we're going to rely on, so that's going to be in the record. Okay?
Okay.
All right. If you had those documents before, they should have been submitted before the petition hearing began, but I don't see a realistic method of holding the record open for you to submit documents that won't be received until after deliberations have concluded.
Okay, so I'll just, so I guess I can.
What did you say, Your Honor?
I said he is free to testify to what he wants to establish, and he may show the phone to the camera if he believes that's beneficial to his testimony. Understand, Mr. Cotton?
Yes, Your Honor. I'll go ahead and read it first.
Okay. Before you do that, I believe I excused you because I thought you were finished, so I'm going to swear you in one more time.
Okay.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury the testimony you are about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. You may continue.
Okay, this document is dated 6/24/20, and it reads Vet Med Team Course Enrollment, Veterinary Medicine, Small Animal Advanced Anesthesia Part 1. Dear Dale Cotton, thank you for your enrollment in Veterinary Medicine, Small Animal Advanced Anesthesia Part 1.
Excuse me, sir. You're reading kind of fast. I was trying to get your attention. Can you start again, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
Vet Med Team Course Enrollment, Veterinary Medicine, Small Animal Advanced Anesthesia Part 1. Dear Dale Cotton, thank you for your enrollment in Veterinary Medicine, Small Animal Advanced Anesthesia Part 1. Please monitor your email closely. Besides normal course-related emails that will be sent upon processing, we may need you to provide us with additional information or clarification. This is an open enrollment course that requires post-payment processing. Please allow 48 hours for course activation. You will receive a welcome email that will provide you with the steps to access the course and important information about your participation. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact us at any time at ce@vetmedteam.com. Thank you, VetMed Team. And this is the email here.
Okay, can you tell us the time and date that email was received? So tell us. Mr. Cotton?
Yes.
Sorry, Dr. Cotton?
Yes.
Can you tell us when that email was received?
Email was received on 6/24/2020.
Time?
3:05.
PM.
You know, they have, it truncates the information on here, but I believe it is PM.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else you'd like to testify to?
Not at this time, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. You're excused. Ms. Crawford, you want to call a witness?
Yes, Your Honor. I wanted to call Miss Virginia Gerard.
Okay, you may do so. I don't see her on my list. Is she connected yet? Oh, I see her. Thank you. Good afternoon, Ms. Gerard.
Hello, Your Honor.
Are you here to testify on this matter?
I am, sir.
Would you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you provide today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do, Your Honor.
Thank you. Please have a seat.
Your Honor, I apologize. This is Dr. Nolan interrupting, but we really need people to mute if they are not actually speaking because I can hardly hear people. There's so much feedback.
Okay, so from what I can tell, everyone's muted except Ms. Crawford, but I want to be sure the court reporter could hear me. I assume he couldn't. He would have let me know. think he heard me just fine. So with that said, Mr. Gerard, would you please state and spell both your first and last name for the record?
My first name is Virginia, Virginia. Last name Gerard, Gerard.
Thank you very much. Ms. Crawford, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Gerard, what is your current occupation?
I am the probation monitor for the Veterinary Medical Board of California.
How long have you held that position?
Since December 16th, 2019.
Can you briefly tell us what you do in your capacity as a probation monitor?
I monitor compliance of licensees under order of the board.
I monitor, excuse me, I'm sorry, I monitor compliance, sorry.
Of licensees placed on probation from an order of the board. And
the licensees
findings.
And then I what? Excuse me.
I give reports of my findings to my superiors.
Thank you.
Is Mr. Cotton one of the probationers that you monitor the compliance of his probation terms?
Dr. Cotton, yes. Yes.
Dr. Cotton, thank you. And has Dr. Cotton reached out to you about his difficulties in obtaining CE credits in the areas that are required by his probation terms?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And what is the nature of the difficulties that he has had that he's expressed to you?
He said that getting things in the specific topics has been difficult.
And I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that. He said getting things
in the specific topics was difficult.
Okay. Did you provide him with any guidance on how to obtain units in the specific topics?
I advised him to do internet searches and to I told him I had seen other folks take larger courses and get credits for the specific topics in that course.
Okay. And at any point, did Dr. Cotton also tell you that he had an understanding with your predecessor about getting CE credit for articles that he read?
Yes, he did. He sent me an article, and then he had asked me for approval. And after a time, I asked him what he meant, and he had said that Sydney, my predecessor, was approving articles.
Excuse me, I lost you. It's hard to hear you. Excuse me. At the time I asked him, or I emailed and clarified with him, he expressed that Sydney was approving articles for CE credits, and that he had done that, and he wanted approval for an article that he had sent me. I told him I would have to look through the file and get back to him on my findings, but at that time that as an analyst for the board, I cannot approve CE credit hours and would only be accepting actual certificates showing successful completion, which is that language is in the decision from a industry standard providers. And I looked in the file after we received the petition, and I saw no evidence that he had actually credited him with particular hours, with any hours. I did see articles sent. I looked for notes in my my e-files, the physical files, and emails.
Excuse me, what was after e-files?
Physical files.
Okay.
And I saw nowhere that he had been granted a credit hour for these. And so I completed my probation report that I think is Exhibit 2 or 3. I don't think, I have no evidence of that.
Okay, so you informed Dr. Cotton that you could not find any evidence of CE units being granted to him for reading articles by your predecessor. Is that accurate?
Actually, no, I don't think I told him that.
Okay.
It's in my report. I'm sorry, ma'am.
Did you at any point tell him that you could not accept articles for CE units?
Correct, yes.
When did you tell him that?
In the summer.
This
June.
summer?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So is it your understanding that as of June 2020, he was aware that he needed to provide you with certificates of completion for CE units?
Going forward, yes.
Okay. Was there anything that Dr. Cotton testified to regarding this issue of CE units and articles that you wanted to clarify that I haven't asked you about?
I don't think so. I have no evidence that Sydney gave him credit for articles.
Do you have evidence that Sydney expressed to him that she would give him credits for articles?
No. I saw one article with Sydney's signature on it. However, as the probation monitor now, we get information on CEs. We take a look at it, and we'll sign it as a proof.
Excuse me, ma'am. I lost you. However, something, then you broke up.
Sorry, David.
Thank you.
As a probation monitor, we do receive information on the CEs. And we review that and typically sign it and send it back because it's a course they're going to take, and we await the certificate of completion, and that would show that we approved that course. I would be speculating, but I suspect that's what that signature indicates.
I would be speculating. Excuse me.
That Sydney's signature on the article was the assumption that it was going to be a course he would take, and he would send the certificate of completion to her once it was received. Because I saw no evidence of credit hours being credited to Dr. Cotton for the article.
Okay, thank you very much. I have no other questions.
All right, any questions for Mr. Rohr from the board? And I'll wait a minute here, or a second. Dr. Bradbury?
Thank you. This is Christina Bradbury, the court reporter. Ms. Gerard, do you know of other cases that have reported this sort of thing to you regarding using papers or journal articles as CE or anything like that?
Excuse me, you broke up. Just something, then I lost you.
Okay, I don't know where that was. Have you ever heard of this being done before, or any other individuals claiming that Sydney did this?
No, ma'am.
That's it. Thank you.
Any other board members have questions? I'll take that as a no. Dr. Cotton, do you have any questions you'd like to ask the witness?
Not at this time, thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you very much. With that said, Mr. Rard, we thank you for your testimony. You are excused.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, any other witnesses, Ms. Crawford?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, any other, well, we've already excused Mr. Cotton, so I believe at this point that concludes our hearing. And at this point, we may go off the record and go into the closed session for deliberation.
Thank you, everybody.
Just for members of the public, we will be reconvening an open session, but not over the webcast or open to the public. So this will be conclude the meeting for the public session. And again, we're not going to reconvene after closed session.
Thanks for your help. You have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Nice to meet you.
And thank you as well, Mr. Cotton. We appreciate it, or Dr. Cotton, we appreciate it. Did you have something to add, Dr. Nolan?
Just wanted to say thank you to Dr. Cotton for coming before the board. Thank you, Dr. Cotton.
Thank you for allowing me to be heard.
Have a good day.
All right, this is the moderator. I'll work on getting us into closed session, so please give me a moment while I kick those that don't need to be in the meeting out and also stop our recording.